Hello, welcome to the podcast of the COMET student meeting. I'm Dan.
And I'm Alice. COMET, which stands for the Centre of Observation and Modelling of Earthquakes, Volcanoes and Tectonics, is a research group across 10 universities, bringing together lots of people who are studying earthquakes and volcanoes in a range of different ways. Each year, the research students from across these different universities meet up to discuss their research progress. In this series of podcasts, we'll be chatting to 4 of these students about their research and life in and outside of their PhD, and try and convince you that earthquakes and volcanoes are cool.
In this episode, we'll be talking to Rachel, a first-year PhD student from the University of Leeds. Rachel's research focuses on numerical modelling of ground deformation caused by volcanoes, the type of deformation that might be observed from Mark or Faye from our previous episodes using INSAR. Check out those episodes too, if you haven't already.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Alice. What are we doing today?
So today we're at the COMET meeting and we're here with Rachel. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So what have you been doing here at the COMET meeting?
Well, I've just been mostly listening, actually. I'm just a first year, just started. Did a quick 5-minute talk yesterday, which I think I was over the top nervous for. But yeah, it's been really interesting to see all the different ways that COMET actually sort of spreads around, to different things.
So you gave a talk yesterday, I'm assuming, it was about your PhD. So what are you trying to figure out in your PhD?
So I'm doing modelling surface deformation due to magma migration through mush zones. So it's part of a bigger project called DeepVolc, it uses deep learning to try and improve volcanic forecasting. So we're trying to make good a possible way of accurately forecasting what's going on. And because magma mush is kind of the new paradigm of subsurface activity and how magma is stored, I'm trying to model the dynamics within that, but mainly how it shows at the surface, and then create an inversion model. Yeah.
Do you want to give us a quick idiot's guide to what is a magma mush?
A magma mush, right. So it's effectively kind of what evolves. So you have your initial intrusion from somewhere below, a big magma reservoir, and it comes up and it's emplaced into the crust at some point. And the way they develop is it has to be repeated at an interval that's short enough. The intrusion never properly cools, so it kind of is continually added to it. So it is cooling down, but it's being continuously topped up. So it creates this sort of mushy area, and then there's melt in the middle usually. I mean, there can be, it doesn't have to be. And then they can also coalesce with other kind of aligned reservoirs within a bigger volcanic region. And that it eventually, after sort of thousands and thousands of years, is completely transcrustal. So it goes from the bottom to the top. There's all sorts of different melt lenses throughout it, and they're kind of interconnected on varying degrees of crystallinity. So as melt if it's intruded from the bottom, it can cause a sudden chemical reaction within the melt, and that can spur on an eruption. So there's a lot of things that come into play. So I think everyone's kind of breaking it down into different bits to study, petrologically, and then numerical modelling of it, and I'm on the modelling side.
So what kind of thing is it that you're modelling? You mentioned it's a numerical model, but what kind of is a numerical model, and how are you using that to investigate this kind of slush puppy of magma?
I'm using poroviscoelasticity, the mush, as a poroviscoelastic rheology. And so I'm not coming up with the model. I'm people are it's quite good. People are actually doing a lot of it at the moment. So there are new models and new ideas coming out, or one came out last year, one's being done by a colleague here at Leeds, and she's in her 4th year, which is really cool. So they have various things that they're changing within their models, like the geometry of the system. So there's spherical, there's cylindrical, which kind of gets more complicated the more realistic you try to make it. And then also the rheological parameters, like the moduli, like bulk modulus, shear modulus, sort of their behaviour. So you kind of need to add all of these things in and have different dependencies on, like, there's like porosity, permeability, all sorts of things come into play. I think I'm very lucky because, the hard maths has like been done, or it's being done, and so I can do more of assess the model, and I'm doing, from the model I'm doing inversion from INSAR with the model, if that makes sense. So seeing what's happening at the surface and then using the model from underneath, and then using that to create a prediction of what could be happening under the surface from other real life data.
I have one more question just about your modelling. And so you were talking about your colleague who's worked on this model previously, and you're going to then invert using some real data.
So she's in her fourth year, so she's pretty much rounding up her project. She's done the maths of it, so she's created this numerical model, which is amazing. Mine kind of has part of that aspect, and then mine is more modelling based in that I'll use a lot of models and then create almost like synthetic type of result. And I have another colleague who's actually using real-time data. So she's using data from Iceland, but that's combined with gravity measurements. And I think mine is to later be applied to real-life data, once I've consolidated some sort of model. But the inversion comes from using what we see finding out what's going on underneath and seeing how it happens at the surface, and then creating a lot of other examples that aren't necessarily real from the surface, and figuring out whether it makes sense what I think is happening underneath. So just going forwards and then backwards.
Yeah. So you're basically gonna fiddle around with the parameters in the model, and see what you get, which sounds like great fun. That's what science is. It's playing around with stuff and seeing what you get. So obviously you spend a lot of time doing your very cool PhD, but what do you like to do when you're not doing your PhD?
I'd say I've forgotten what a lot of my hobbies are. I think having moved to a new city the whole of last term was a bit of a blur, and it was more getting to know the people, the place. I think I don't regret that. I used to love sort of doing more sport and don't know whether it counts as a hobby, but going to the pub, doing a quiz, stuff like that. I think you find a good environment for that, I think, in academia. And I like sort of art classes. I know it sounds really weird, very sporadic. But again, a lot of it at the beginning kind of got swept up into starting something new that was a bit consuming. But I definitely found that even in the 2 weeks of 2022, I've been a lot more exploring different things I want to do again, and found that I can relax a bit and spend a bit more time on my own doing other things.
Moving can be very stressful, especially when it's kind of a place where you don't already know anyone. So you kind of have to take that time to establish yourself and even do simple things like work out where the nearest Sainsbury's is.
Literally, yeah.
So you moved to a new city to do your PhD. Obviously, undergrads who are applying for PhD might have to move to a different place. Do you have any kind of advice for people who are going to apply to PhDs if they're thinking about not staying at the same university and moving?
I don't know. I very much considered I thought it would be really nice to stay at UCL in London, because I was I know it and I know that I like it and I know nice people and it's comfortable here. But then I was told by a few people that like it is good. Well, it's good. I mean, anywhere's great as long as you're enjoying it. It also does help to, you're basically expanding your network of your life. Like, I think when you move somewhere, and I'm always really excited to like move to a different city. I've done it a few times, but then and you suddenly have this moment when you arrive, like, oh my god, what have I done? Like, I don't know anyone. Like, what I could literally like disappear, and then it just takes like a week or two of just being like, okay, I'll just say whatever comes into my head and like be random and like do stuff, and you don't even realize it. And there are always people in the same boat as you, especially with something like academia, like a PhD. There are going to be other people in your cohort starting at exactly the same time, and the likelihood is you've got a lot of common interests if you're in the same department. So yeah, and I also asked a lot of people about Leeds. For some reason, everybody knows somebody who lives in Leeds, and they're like, oh, they loved it. So it's lovely here. I highly recommend it. Very nice.
So do you have any advice generally for someone who would be interested in applying to a PhD?
Yeah, I mean, I asked a few people, everyone kind of said similar things, but I think it depends on the experience of each person. So a lot, if you're thinking about applying for PhDs, I mean, I'm literally only, 3 or 4 months in, so probably not the most experienced person to ask, but like the importance of getting on with your supervisor, like someone who you, like that's a very big thing, and I know it sounds really simple, but like I really like my supervisors, they're great, but you're going to be spending a lot of time with the person, and you're going to be probably, especially at first, like not depending on them, but the way you feel after meetings will mean quite a lot, and like it can have a big effect on how you think you're doing and how you feel about the work that you're doing. So that's a big one. And also I was quite late to the game, but Twitter is like, I was so unaware of it. I never used it. And then I think towards the end of my 4th year in undergrad, I like looked at it and was like, what? This is ridiculous, like community of people. And it's so much less formal, but it's still all these like postdocs, professors, like all sorts of lecturers and researchers talking about everything from like, I don't know, citing styles to like LGBTQIA plus, like you've got the support of like everything that you need, and yeah, I don't really ever tweet anything or anything. I'm just like looking on it all the time, and it's always really nice to hear other perspectives and then realize that also you're not the only person who's like, what am I doing? I don't know. And yeah, so that's good. There's like a resource for everything, like just look for it and you will find it. So that's good.
Well, we've mentioned Twitter a lot, so you might as well plug your Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, my Twitter is probably not the most exciting thing in the world. Like, I don't think I've done a tweet since like 2014, but and mine's just my name. It's literally Rachel Bilsland.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about the research going on, check out the COMET website.
Or feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at seismoalice or at tease_size.